Thanks for listening to this episode of The Professional Edge. My name's Todd, tax attorney, CPA, and certified financial planner, host here on The Professional Edge. And what we're going to talk about is the steps to take. What do you mean by that? Well, steps to take, let's plan our estate. Let's do some tax planning. Let's do some investment management. The steps to take to get from point A to point B. So that way you have that safe and secure retirement. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, but when we talk about moving forward, what we need to do is actually start from the beginning. We need to figure out what we want to do to move forward in the things and the tasks that we want to accomplish. For example, when spring rolls around, we know the task is let's get the outside yard going. Let's go get some fertilizer. Let's get the weeds out. Let's do some mulch. Let's get those things started. So the steps to take, let's step back and say the steps to take for our estate plan are, A, we got to look at some titles on things. For example, you may have a residence that you own. A lot of individuals that we talk with at the Cunningham Center, when we meet with them, we ask them who owns the house, and each one of the individuals looks at each other and says, well, I think you do, or I think it's in joint name. Well, joint name or individual name, those are dependently or independently different, because we need to know for certain who owns that house. And the reason being, individuals, when they pass away, if they own the house solely in their individual name and they don't have a will, then we know, listening to the Professional Edge, that that entire house is not going to go to the surviving spouse if there's children. So think about that for a second. That child can actually petition the court to have the house sold. Now, depending on the judge in the probate court, may or may not allow that to happen, but why even put yourself in that circumstance? So if the individual passes away intestate, meaning they do not have a will, then the surviving spouse has the right to one half of that house, and then the other one half is divided equally between the surviving spouse and the children. So think about that. A, now mom, potentially, if she's a surviving spouse, may have to pay rent to the children if there is a strained relationship between them. So again, the steps to take to make sure a estate plan is in full force and effect is to review the title of your assets. So again, if you don't know who the owner is of your house, it's a wake-up call, things to do. Pull the deed on your home. And a lot of individuals may say, well, I never got a deed because I still owe money on the house. That's not a true statement. When you bought the house, you actually received a warranty deed or a limited warranty deed, and then there is a deed to secure debt on that residence, but you did receive a deed, and that is your legal title to that home. So pull that document and see if it's A, in your individual name and joint name, or joint with right of survivorship, because with joint of right of survivorship, if a husband leaves that parcel of land to his son, let's say it's a hunting parcel of land, and he, in his last will and testament, says, I hereby give the hunting property to my son. But lo and behold, the deed says joint tenant right of survivorship with his spouse. Guess what? That spouse is going to receive that because the title on assets actually supersedes. So steps to take, we got to make sure we have the right legal title on these assets to make sure that your estate plan is effective. So again, if you're uncertain about your estate plan, you may have your last will and testament, but the person who drafted this could be the internet of all people, drafting your estate plan. Not sure about the title, or the person who drafted it did not ask you about the title, see a title to the residence. They just sort of drafted some documents. Well, that's a half-baked estate plan. So in order to, A, make sure that you have a steps properly taken to have your estate plan in place, do give our office a call at 877-654-9798. That number again, 877-654-9798. So that's the first step we need to take is A, who has title on the residence? Is it in your individual name, joint name, or is it joint with right of survivorship? Those all supersede what is in your last will and testament unless it's in your individual name. And then the terms and conditions of your last will and testament will dictate where that property goes. Or if you die intestate, then we go to the law of descent and distribution, and therefore it comes back to that individual. So another great place to get a steps to take is your very first step. You might want to visit our website at emcadvisors.com. That is Echo Mary Charlie Advisors.com. And on the right-hand side, you're going to see the Ultimate Estate Plan Guide. Go ahead and select that. We'll send out the information. And those are just some great starter questions on, have you considered this? Have you thought about that? So again, that's another step to take. Again, emcadvisors.com. So what's the other step we need to take when we're talking about estate planning? Well, the next step that we need to take is, do you have enough life insurance? And a lot of individuals say, okay, it's not going to happen to me. I wake up, I have the S on my chest. There is no kryptonite to weaken me. So therefore, I don't need life insurance. Well, you actually do, because there's no guarantee for tomorrow. We all know that. The fountain of youth has not been discovered. So do you have an adequate amount of life insurance? And you say, well, how much is adequate? Well, it all depends on each one of you as a listener here on the Professional Edge. And that is, life insurance replaces things. It replaces the earning capacity of the individual decedent, or it funds the payoff of the mortgage, or it can also fund the college accounts for the minor children, or it can be a combination of all of these. Now, you basically put the information and you determine what the need is for the insurance. You just don't pick a number out of the sky. That makes no financial sense. So what is the need for insurance? And therefore, that is what would dictate the amount of the coverage that you need. Now, a lot of individuals have group insurance through their employer. They sign up for that. That's awesome. That's great. But let's think about this. A lot of individuals are transferring around. The economy's good. We have our choice of jobs now. So when we transfer jobs, guess what? That insurance, the group insurance that we had, is no longer valid. So if you're one of these job hoppers, you may have an insurability issue. That's number one. And number two, the new employer may not offer this group life insurance. So therefore, you become uninsured. And even when you leave your place of employment, then you're uninsured until you become eligible on the new employer side. So again, you're swimming naked, and unfortunately, some bad things happen to good people at that point in time, and then there would be no insurance for the surviving spouse and the minor children. So again, I'm a big proponent on determining the need for the amount of life insurance you have. So that way you don't leave the surviving spouse and the minor children or children destitute. There's number one. And number two, it creates this pool of tax-free money. Yes, it is all income tax-free as long as we do not have a transfer for value rule issue. That's beyond the concept of this professional edge. But if you want to talk about that in depth, then we're just going to assume that you have this life insurance. Could be a whole life, could be a universal life, or it could even be a term policy. Well, those death benefits are going to come in income tax-free, and therefore we know that those monies can be used to A, fund the college education, B, provide the replacement of earnings. That's one of the largest assets that listeners here in the Professional Edge sort of disregard. It's your earnings capacity that we have to insure, and therefore that would replace that. And then also we have to worry about the surviving spouse if they're working, and there's minor children. Well, lo and behold, now we got to cover that. We got to figure out what child care we're going to have. So those are all things. Again, it's need-based, and the insurance is a commodity, and therefore you quote different companies. You make sure they're A+ rated, and then you apply for that insurance. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. The cost of insurance has actually declined. The reason why it's declined is because we have this longevity. We're living longer, so the insurance company is willing to take on that risk at a less cost. So again, if you have not sat down with a professional and determine the amount of life insurance that you actually need, or have that analysis, do give our office a call at 877-654-9798. That number again, 877-654-9798. We can meet down here at the Cunningham Center, or if you want to brave the traffic of our 9 or 10 lanes in one direction heading north on 75, then you can visit our office in Atlanta, Georgia. Or the day of the Zoom call, we can also schedule that for the initial consultation. So again, to coordinate that, 1-877-654-9798. That number again, 877-654-9798. Now, when you buy this more expensive house, that's another reason why you might want to say, hey, it's a life-changing event. You had another child, you bought a different house. So therefore, you have different obligations, and therefore you have a change in circumstances. So what steps do you need to take to put that in place? Well, your need for that insurance coverage has changed. So therefore, the steps to take: figure out the need. Number 2, get a quote. Number 3, make a decision, implement it, and be done. That's as simple as it can be. So again, to have that conversation, 877-654-9798. That number again, 877-654-9798. So what's your next step that you need to take with regard to your estate plan? Well, we got to make sure that you also have your beneficiary designations correct on that insurance, and also on your qualified retirement plans. Because inside your last will and testament, you might have everything going to your surviving spouse, but you know what? The beneficiary designation on that life insurance is going to supersede whatever is in your estate planning documents. So therefore, if on your life insurance you name your spouse as 80%, your children as 20%, but inside your last will and testament, you have everything going to the surviving spouse, then guess what? That insurance is going to be split 80% and 20%, because, again, the terms and conditions of the beneficiary designation on that life insurance supersedes whatever you have in your last will and testament. So let's think about this. You have your primary beneficiary as your surviving spouse, but when we ask clients about who the contingent beneficiary is on their life insurance, they just look at me and say, I don't know. Well, most of the time spouses are traveling together. They may have date night, and an unfortunate event might happen and they both do not return home. Well, if it's blank, then it's going to the estate, and if the estate is there and there's no document in place, then the minor child will receive that at the age of majority. The great state of Georgia, it's 18, so therefore, if you have a $500,000 policy today, and let's give them 10 years, so therefore, they're the age of 8, that money will probably double, so therefore, instead of a $500,000, they're going to receive $1 million when they're age 18. That is a complete recipe for disaster. So therefore, we need to make sure that we have the contingent beneficiary in place. So therefore, it's captured by your estate plan and placed in trust for your minor child. It's another consideration on why being a tax attorney and a certified financial planner and a CPA were able to coordinate to make sure all of this goes. So you're working with one professional to get all of this done. Again, having your estate plan done, your investment advisory done, and also your tax planning. Again, thanks for listening to The Professional Edge. My name's Todd, tax attorney, CPA, and certified financial planner. And to have a conversation on what steps you need to take to get your estate plan done, do give our office a call at 877-654-9798. That number again, 877-654-9798. Now, to combine all three of these, again, your estate plan, your income tax planning, and your financial plan, you're always welcome to go to emcthebundle.com. That is Echo Mary Charlie thebundle.com. And we put together a great offer for our listeners here on The Professional Edge. Again, we have to take steps in order to get to the end result, and we need to make sure that those steps that we're taking is in the right direction. You don't want to pull your estate plan off the internet and put it together and not coordinate these beneficiary designations on, for example, your IRA or on your life insurance. So more coming up here on the Professional Edge on steps to take.
We've all thought about it. Everyone listening will need one. Not having one can cause untold heartache, family conflict escalating to the point of a lawsuit. One simple thing that avoids all that: an effective estate plan. As a practicing tax attorney, Todd with Estate Management Counselors has completed over 1,000 estate plans during his 15 years of professional practice. He can help you implement an effective estate plan, coordinate your financial accounts, and make sure you have named the proper beneficiaries to maximize your tax savings. Call 877-654-9798 today and let tax attorney Todd help you implement an effective estate plan. Call 877-654-9798 today. As a tax attorney CPA for over 15 years, Todd has implemented over 1,000 individual estate plans. He has recently authored an especially helpful guide, How to Unlock the Ultimate Estate Plan. This guide has helped many individuals to understand the benefits of an estate plan and how to avoid unintended disasters. has made every attempt to write this in plain English. To receive this valuable guide, How to Unlock the Ultimate Estate Plan, call 1-877-654-9798 and request your complimentary copy today, or by emailing your request to info@emcadvisors.net.